In 1936, George V died, and the country went into mourning. The link between the monarchy and the aristocracy was still strong, and the royal household was now one of the few national institutions where aristocrats still held the key positions. Charles Londonderry's job as Air Minister came to an abrupt end when Ramsay MacDonald's government fell. A few months later, he was sacked by Stanley Baldwin, who his wife had called that common little man.
He was absolutely devastated when Baldwin sacked him, absolutely devastated. And it took him a long time to get over. It was a mortal wound. It really struck him down.
As Air Minister, Londonderry had been aware of the threat from Germany, where factories were pumping out arms. Now he was out of power, he decided to fly to Nazi Germany to see the situation for himself. He was treated as an honoured guest.
One of the things Hitler had always done was expressed his admiration for the British upper classes. I mean, it was a purely specious thing, but this was something he had always said. And, of course, a lot of people rather took this in. And I think he thought that private visits could perhaps help a bit.
I went with him, which was a wonderful thing to have done, sort of seeing all these ghastly people looking back. But Goering looked rather a figure of fun in his most extraordinary clothes. He dressed like Robin Hood. We were met by various Germans who were put in charge of my father, so that he could sort of have a review of all the things there and go around looking to see what they were up to. But of course he was only shown that they wanted to show him.
So what sort of people did you meet?
Well, all of them. Hitler, Ribbentrop, Goering, Himmler, Goebbels, Hess.
Londonderry had several private conversations with Hitler, but he achieved little. On his return, he was accused of having fascist sympathies. Among the accusers was his own son, the current Lord Londonderry's father.
My father did say that he'd fallen for those plausible blackguards, the Nazis. That was my father's phrase. But I think that was being a bit unfair. I do genuinely believe that my grandfather was absolutely horrified and sickened by his experiences in the First World War and was prepared to do almost anything to prevent another one.
Charles and Edith Londonderry felt obliged to invite Ribbentrop to stay at Mount Stuart.
This is a photograph of Ribbentrop when he came to visit here in 1936, which was to sort of have him here to stay after receiving hospitality from the Ribbentrops in Germany. They flew here on the Sunday. Ribbentrop arrived on the Saturday in these U-52 Junker aircraft. And then the others came over for the day. We had a huge lunch party for them.
On that visit, Ribbentrop gave the family a China Stormtrooper, which still stands on the mantelpiece at Mount Stuart. Ribbentrop visited the family again the next year at their estate in County Durham, where he attended a service at Durham Cathedral.
When they sung the hymn tune, which is the same hymn tune as the German national anthem, my father told me he was prepared. The moment he saw Ribbentrop's hand going up like that, he thought, my God, I must make... So one hand was like that, sort of prepared to karate chop it the moment he went up like that. Of course, he wouldn't have done that. I mean, Ribbentrop, from all experiences, was a very urbane. He wouldn't have done anything as crude as that. But my father, I remember my father telling me he was absolutely petrified at the thought that he was going to do that, and he was prepared to do anything to stop that right hand going up.
Charles Londonderry's contacts with the Nazis do seem to have been a genuine attempt to prevent war. But some die-hard aristocrats did have fascist sympathies. The Duke of Northumberland founded The Patriot, an anti-Semitic newspaper, and Lord Redesdale maintained that Hitler was a right-thinking man. The patriotism of fascism appealed to some landowners, and the British Union of Fascists was founded by another aristocrat, Sir Oswald Mosley.
And I claim that in the ranks of our Excerpt legions march the mighty ghosts of England's past, and their strong arms around us, and their voices echo down the ages, saying onward.
Sir Oswald Mosley had inherited a baronetcy and a country estate at Rolleston in Staffordshire.
As a boy, I think he had felt very much part of the county world of horses and shooting and that sort of thing. He'd been part of that. But I think the First World War altered all that. I think he had... He certainly came back from the First World War with very passionate feelings that there must never be another war, and feelings that the old type of government were sort of apt to lead to things like war. And so I think from that moment on he felt very much a loner.
Mosley sold the family estate so that he could concentrate fully on his political ambitions. He became first a Tory MP and then a Labour MP, before founding his own party. He married Lady Cynthia Curzon, whose father had been Viceroy of India. She too became a Labour MP, and then loyally followed her husband into his British Union of Fascists.
And this nation again and again in the great hours of its fate has swept aside convention, has swept aside the little men of talk and of delay, and has decided to follow men and movements. What day we go forward to action.
But Mosley had gone too far for most aristocrats.
They're very sort of hidebound, right-wing aristocratic Tories, I suppose, thought it was almost worse becoming Labour, more of a renegade act than it was anything else. But and I don't think they liked him. And in fact, all through my childhood and youth and teenage, I can't remember him having any contacts with the old that old right-wing sort of aristocracy people at all.
It was Mosley's political style as much as his political views which seemed to offend other aristocrats.
My father started marching to and fro like Mussolini and singing the songs that the Italian fascists did, and of course that was also breaking the rules of the game, because you were thought to be, he was thought to be copying these foreign upstarts, which in a certain way he was, and looking back with hindsight, was a great mistake, because of course one thing English don't like are people dressing up like foreigners.
By 1938, the Londonderries had reconciled themselves to the necessity of war with Hitler. Edith even saw it as a fresh opportunity for old-style aristocratic leadership.
There is still, what should we call it, an upper class. They still wield a certain influence behind the scenes. In times of crisis, their presence will still be felt. Something solid and very British, and above all, they are people who are born and bred to the old tradition that possessions carry duties with them before pleasure.
It was an aristocrat who led Britain through the war, Winston Churchill, grandson to a duke. His rival for the wartime premiership was Lord Halifax, and there were 3 other aristocrats in the coalition cabinet. But Churchill did not respond to his cousin Charles Londonderry's numerous appeals for a job. During the war, the aristocracy reverted to its traditional role as the officer class. When the war began, Nicholas Mosley was 16.
If one was at Eton, one joined the infantry and one went and fought. There was no question of becoming a spy in West Africa. That was an aristocratic value. Aristocrats were people, they had a very easy life in peacetime. They sat on their horses in their big houses and they rode and they hunted and they did whatever. But when war came, they were the first people there and they were in the front line.
When aristocrats answered the call of duty, they felt it was important to serve in the right regiment.
There were a lot of absolutely stupid distinctions between regiments. I mean, really stupid, I do mean this. Looking back on it, one would naturally think of either going in to the Guards regiments, the 4 Guards regiments, or one would go into the Rifle Brigade or the 60th Rifles. They were what's called green jacket, black button regiments. We all wore black buttons on a uniform. And the one thing that we didn't want to do was to go into a brass button regiment. It sounds so silly.
Nicholas Mosley joined the Rifle Brigade, one of the socially acceptable regiments. He was awarded the Military Cross for his bravery during the Italian campaign, though his father spent the war in an internment camp.
I've always feel in a sort of way I've been saved from being typecast as being upper class by my father being a fascist, and perhaps I've been with any luck I've been not so, I never got stuck really too haunted by the fact of my father being a fascist, because there's some sort of blanket thing, there's some protection in being upper class. Sure, it's sort of that's just the way life is, yeah, I suppose.